is National Youth Month, and the 16th of June is Youth Day, as we all know. Now, this year's Youth Month coincides with the commemoration of 25 years of freedom and democracy, a celebration of youth activism. Now, every year on the 16th of June, South Africa commemorates 1976 Soweto uprisings. Now, it provides us with an opportunity to take stock of the strides we've made in addressing issues facing the youth. So today, then, we discuss health issues affecting our youth. And we're joined in studio by a specialist surgeon, a family physician, a clinical psychologist, and two young people who will share their stories with us. One a breast cancer survivor, and the other one living with diabetes. You can tweet us at SABC Health Talk, or simply interact with us on our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk. So sit back, relax, and learn from this bumper show, coming to you just after a short break. I'm Dr. Salome Taung, and this is Health Talk.
We do not just speak. We let every voice in our nation find full expression in language and in culture. We do not just teach. We empower all people with education. We do not just bring you the news. We place you where the news is happening. We do not just entertain. We take you on journeys. We do not just broadcast sport. We create an arena for sporting heroes to inspire you. Ours is not just a job, it's a calling to ensure that everyone in our nation is informed, educated, and entertained. We're able to do this because you do your part. SABC TV licenses. It's all made possible by you.
Tell me a story.
My child, I have a great story to tell you. Although we come from humble beginnings, we've done legendary things.
South Africa have won the 1996 African Cup of Nations.
Our lands are full of wonders. Even though sometimes things don't go our way, we find inner strength to persevere and push forward. We dress up for the occasion. Oh, how we love to dance and sing. We've seen our fair share of victories and disappointments. But we thrive when we are together. And that, my dear child, is the beautiful story of Africa.
SABC is the official broadcaster of AFCON 2019, Africa's beautiful story.
My name is Khotso Molefe, and I'm 21 years of age, and I live in Soweto, Diepkloof. I have bipolar, type 2 bipolar. I wake up in the morning and I take antidepressants. I take 2 tablets. It took time to adjust to the medication. Taking medication every day in the morning, it's not something you used to. I'm not a person who cries a lot, but then during my depression, I used to cry a lot. My sleeping pattern was disturbed, and I was aggressive, was moody a lot, and I just wanted to be alone at times. What I was hearing when I say I hear voices was like conversations in my head. It was conflicting conversations, and another thing is that they were racing thoughts. So I was thinking a lot of things at once, and it's something that I wasn't used to. But it was a problem because I couldn't function normally like a normal person would. I went to go see a psychologist, and I explained all my symptoms to him, and he prescribed me a psychiatrist. That's where I got my diagnosis and the cocktail, the medication that worked for me from day one. And I was happy that there's something that was done. I accepted. I don't want to be in denial. Living in denial, it's like taking 10 steps back. You feel normal again, and you realize that, look, this is reality, and you have to live this way in order to keep your life in check. The fact that I'm able to eat again, like normally I'm able to sleep again. My moods are in check, they're stable, and yeah, that's important. I learned that exercising releases your endorphins, so it's the happy mood. So exercise, like 30 minutes exercise, just releases endorphins. It decreases the symptoms or the effects of depression. I have a routine. I have a workout plan. I wake up in the morning like, okay, I'm not feeling so well, and I think to myself, maybe 30 minutes or 45-minute run will work for me, and I just go out, and when I come back, I'm in a happy mood, you know.
Okay, so we're going to learn more about, mental issues that affect youth, and to help me with that is our two special guests. First, the gentleman on the right, Dr. Fundile Nyati, who's no stranger to this show. Dr. Nyati is a family physician and CEO of Proactive Health Solution. Well, welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Nyati.
Morning talk.
All right. And of course, next to Dr. Nyati, we have Cassandra Govender, who's been with us some time ago. And Cassandra is a clinical psychologist in practice out in Senton.
Yeah.
Welcome to Health Talk, Cassandra.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Perhaps let's stay with you. I mean,
Sure.
this is reality. Young people do get mental illnesses.
Yeah.
We've just had this clip on, the young fellow with bipolar. So what are some of the common illnesses that we're seeing out there?
Sure. Well, I'm really glad we're having this conversation because I think it's so important to discuss it for two reasons.
Right.
Firstly, our youth don't even recognize that they're having mental health challenges,
Yeah.
and parents, educators, and the community aren't empowered with the information to recognize it either. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of symptoms and conditions that are going under the radar because no one is picking it up. And then often we're having these tragic suicides, and then only we're starting to pick up there was a massive problem. So we're looking at depression, anxiety, bipolar, mood disorders essentially as quite common features that the youth are presenting with today. Eating disorders as well.
Yeah. Obviously, when you're talking youth, we're talking people under the
Quite
age of
of the
35.
spectrum, yeah.
But how young do we see, youth with
Yeah.
mental health issues?
Well, last year we had the youngest ever case reported of suicide, which was 6 years old. So mental health is something that can affect you at any point in your life, and it
Yeah.
affects everyone.
Yeah.
So you can have something as young as that to, I suppose, as old as well. So it's across the spectrum.
Yeah. So, Doc, I'm sure you want to weigh in here. I mean, there's certain issues, obviously, that one can say, these are possible risk factors or causes of mental illness in the youth. We can start from school-going age.
Yeah. Look, like she said, we're seeing more and more, younger people who are presenting with challenges of mental illness, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, substance abuse, and many other conditions.
Right.
But if you trace some of these, as cases, you may find that there's certain challenges early on in their lives. Some of them, issues that happened when they were still, under 5. And they were not managed properly, and they start manifesting, as they become teenagers and young adults. But one thing that is becoming an issue now, cyberbullying. A lot of these, kids, they have got access to, social media, your WhatsApps and all. And it's amazing the amount of bullying that is happening in that cyberspace, which creates problems. I mean, my kid goes to one of the private schools here, and one of her classmates, who's about 13 years old, had already had a plan on how to kill herself, because of bullying by, friends and rejection by friends on WhatsApp.
So it's no longer only just physical bullying that happens at school.
No, it has actually moved to the cyberspace.
Right.
And unfortunately, parents, they don't know much about what happens in that space. And by the time, they wake up, it's a major issue. So it was very close to a suicide case. So we're seeing a lot of that. Problems in the families, there's a lot of divorce that's happening, in our country nowadays. And parents sometimes forget that there's a serious impact to their kids when they go through such situations. Yes, they may have to deal with their own issues, but at least put the interest of the kids first. So there's a lot of things, the expectations from parents, especially for the teenagers, in terms of school performance and all of that. So there's many drivers, and we're hardly there as parents to be with our kids so that they can open up, because we work hard, work for long hours. Sometimes we substitute with money, thinking that we're doing a good thing. So it's actually a big problem.
Even on the sports side, I guess.
Yes.
As parents, you want to have Kagiso Rabadas and
exactly, because you want
some Springbok.
Yes, you know what they call a vicarious, living. Something that you could not achieve yourself, but actually now you want to, achieve it through your child, and it may not necessarily be what your child wants.
All right. So obviously, for people watching this, it's somebody says, but so how can I notice that my child or the youth, next door or in my neighborhood is having problems? What are the common symptoms to look out for?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is to take emotions as something as valid. So I think we assume that when someone is emotional, they're just having an off day, but how our mental health is expressed through our emotions. So certain things like irritability, you often see that in younger people. So depression presents more as irritability the younger you are. So a consistent irritable mood, changes in sleep, so sleeping too much, sleeping too little. It's usually sleeping too much that you want to look out for in depressions, but sleeping too little in the bipolar mood, like we saw in our clip. Changes in eating, so eating too little or eating too much. You basically want to have a look at what is out of the norm here. So generally I have a child that is, getting up and going to school every day, and they're eating normally, they're sleeping normally, and then for a 2-week period or even longer, I'm starting to notice that they're quite tired all the time, there's bags under their eyes, they're looking very sad, and they're wanting to skip school. So you're looking for things out of the norm like that.
So children, especially young ones, often talk to get at their parents. So a young kid might say, for instance, I'm going to kill myself. How seriously should it take such?
Well, I think you should always take it seriously when someone says they want to kill themselves, because that's an extreme expression of emotion. Sometimes people use that to express themselves, and they don't always intend on killing themselves. So it's not that they want to die, it's that they're struggling to cope with what's going on. But that's still very serious, and they may end up killing themselves in the process. So I think if someone says it to you, even if that's not what they meant, you should discuss it with a child, because perhaps they don't understand how severe that is or what it means. So opening that dialogue and saying, what do you mean by that? What's going on? Let me try and understand why you're saying that is very important.
Okay. So I guess on the one hand, we're saying, how do people recognize early signs? But of course, one step back is to say, how do we even prevent some of these things from taking place? Let's deal with, teenagers. Often at school, they're faced with a myriad of problems. From relationships, their own relationships, from performance at school and so on. Your advice?
Well, I think it's important, firstly, to recognize the fact that we have this growing challenge of mental illnesses amongst our youth. Starting from even the age of 5, 6, like she mentioned, and the pressures, they become more, obviously, as they get to teenagehood. And that's the time that they are shifting away from, focusing on parents, and there's a lot of external influences, peer influence, and all of that. So for me, I think as parents, we need to be able to get to a situation where our kids can talk to us about anything. We must create that enabling environment for our kids to be able to talk to us about anything, because what's important is to pick it up early so that you can do something about it. I mentioned earlier that, we sometimes substitute with money, and not there for our kids. Let's be there for our kids as parents. Let's make them understand that we are there to support them, and let's get to know their friends and peers so that we can be able to, monitor those kind of relationships, and be able to, to come in where we think there's a problem or there's a bad influence. So for me, I think that is that, but also get to know the teacher. When you are called to go and see a teacher for this and that, go go and have that time, because there's valuable information that you can get as a parent from a teacher about how your child behaves in that environment of a school. Right. So really, I think let's be involved in growing up our kids.
All right. Cassandra, your concluding thoughts on perhaps advice to youth?
Well, I just wanted to say one thing quickly around preventative, which is that to acknowledge that we often only talk about mental illness, not understanding that mental health is a thing. So if you want to be preemptive, we need to start maintaining our mental health and not only intervening when it's illness. But my concluding remarks to the youth is to say that mental health challenges and illnesses are real. So if you're feeling things that you can't process, like you're having suicidal thoughts and you're having changes in your body, take it seriously and talk to someone. If you cannot talk to your parents, a teacher that you trust, or even SADC has a suicide helpline that you can call. Take what you're feeling seriously, because lots of people don't do that because they don't understand it is serious and it's real.
It is real indeed. Well, time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on youth and health. Please stay with us.
Trans Travel is your ultimate hookup on all things arts, travel, entertainment, and lifestyle. We go far and wide discovering the world's undiscovered wonders. So be sure not to miss Trans Travel every Saturday at 5:30 p.m.
SABC News continues to gauge our democracy throughout 2019 by highlighting the successes, failures, and challenges. Democracy Gauge is back on SA Today every Tuesday from 5:30 to 6 p.m. It's 25 years in review of all aspects of the South African democratic experience, and you remain in the heart of the story. SABC News, independent, impartial.
Mama, tell me a story.
My child, I have a great story to tell you. Although we come from humble beginnings, we've done legendary things.
South Africa have won the 1996 African Cup of Nations.
Our lands are full of wonders. Even though sometimes things don't go our way, we find inner strength to persevere and push forward. We dress up for the occasion. Oh, how we love to dance and sing. We've seen our fair share of victories and disappointments. But we thrive when we are together. And that, my dear child, is the beautiful story of Africa.
SABC is the official broadcaster of AFCON 2019, Africa's beautiful story. SABC is the official broadcaster of AFCON 2019, Africa's beautiful story.
Welcome back. So one of the areas that affect youth is really around cancers, and to help me look at the subject is Professor Carol Ann Ben, who's a renowned specialist surgeon, well known around Johannesburg and on breast disease, breast disease specialist. Welcome to Health Talk once again.
Always a pleasure.
All right, and of course we also have Mandisa Ntsinde, who is a breast cancer survivor, is actually on chemotherapy currently. Welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Perhaps let's start with you.
Yes.
Tell us your story.
In a nutshell, young girl from the Vaal, born and raised in the Vaal, and I love writing. I love anything that's to do with the arts, and that's where my passion is. And last year December, I noticed a lump in my breast, and being the person that I am, I have body image issues, obviously. So anything that's to do with my body, I ignore it. So I ignored it up until it came to a point where it started getting serious. There was discharge coming from my breast. The lump was noticeable. It was big. And I was very reluctant to share it with my family because I thought, it's just something, it's just a normal thing, it'll pass. But when I spoke to my mom pushed me. She was like, you need to get this checked out ASAP because this is your health. But I was very reluctant because I'm like, there's no breast cancer history in the family. So
right. And you're too young.
I'm too young to have breast cancer. It can't be anything.
Do you mind asking how old you are?
I'm 28.
Okay, so you're diagnosed at 27?
Yes.
Right.
And just the whole process of going through that, it was eye-opening for me because it taught me to listen to my body.
Right.
There were symptoms that I noticed years ago, like about a year ago, that I didn't take notice of because I thought it's nothing. Yeah. And when you're a young person and you're faced with health issues, you try to Google, you try to get as much sources as you can from the internet, but that doesn't normally work out well until you actually go into a hospital or a doctor or a healthcare practitioner to get yourself sorted out.
And how are you dealing with the fact that you've been diagnosed with breast cancer?
To be honest, I started this journey in January. That's the first time that I went to go get it checked out. And when the results came out the first time around, they ordered a biopsy immediately. But even then, I was like, no, I was reluctant. Went back to Helen Joseph, the breast clinic. They've been very supportive.
Well, talk about the breast clinic. Perhaps let's bring her in now. Prof, tell us about the trends. Are we seeing more young people with breast cancer?
So we spoke a little bit about it outside. Probably we are, but it's very hard to know because when you run specialist units, the good news is as work gets out into the community, which is really what this is all about, the fact that cancers can occur and breast cancers do happen in youngsters. And as you can hear from this story, the obvious mass was in 2017, but before that there were symptoms for at least a year or so beforehand. So this has probably been sitting around from by the time you were 25, 26, slowly growing, slowly changing. So it's not a different disease. We're just seeing more cancers, particularly breast cancers in youngsters. And really we want to get message out there. So I run open access clinics. You can come in on a Tuesday, come in on Thursday. You won't be turned around. It's hard for people to acknowledge that there's a problem, and then it's even harder to access healthcare services. So it behoves us to offer healthcare services that are more people orientated and listen to patients. So not this vertical medicine where this is the story, and I'm very anti this concept of ablative mastectomy, bringing youngsters in and chopping off breasts. In fact, for anyone, it's actually really very little place today. So part of what I have is a big foundation I'm involved in. I kind of patrons and set it up, and that's about getting awareness in the communities and people to access the correct services. Because if we're not educating doctors, people, children, everyone, people don't know that cancer can present anything. So if it's your body and it doesn't seem right, you need to go and find someone who you can speak to, who can do the right investigation.
So which communities are you working with?
Throughout the Vaal, Soweto, in fact countrywide we have, and it's really about awarenesses where people don't have access to healthcare funding. I think that healthcare is a fundamental human right, in fact we know from our constitution, and that it's not about you can only have medical aids and stuff to access good healthcare. We need to offer brilliant service where people don't have medical aids.
All right. I want us to talk about what people should do to try and pick up early signs, or what, some sort of a risk assessment. But before that, how young are you seeing them?
18.
18 years old. And I believe you're also seeing males as well?
I do. I see lots of young men. I have a penchant for all these young boys who come to the clinic. They're such nice young men. And if the girls are nervous to come in, you must see a young man come into a bright pink clinic. It's not exactly the place he wants to be. So we have to again make sure that they realize that we see young male breast cancers. Most of the time it's gynecomastia. Even more so, this concept of ARV related gynecomastia is a big thing for me. So I have a specialist clinic. We have these young boys that have massive, massive breasts from their ARVs, and often it promotes non-compliance in treatments. So we've got to realize that if it doesn't feel right, or you have a symptom that's not normal, so this concept of it's around the time of your period, it's just a lump, absolutely not. If it's not right, go forward and seek correct attention. You need to have an understanding, an insight into your body. So when you get turned away by a GP, a gynae, anyone who says, you're too young, it can't be cancer, or I've examined your breasts and they're normal. We don't have eyes on our fingers, so everything should be followed with an ultrasound. We should make a diagnosis and know what things are. Once we know what things are, people need an opportunity to have it discussed in their home language with counsellors so they can digest the information. Very important.
She mentioned that, if I'm not mistaken, that there's no family history. There wasn't anybody in your family, correct?
Yeah.
What sort of risk assessment should people do?
65% of people who get breast cancer have no identifiable risk factors.
Right.
25% of random family history, and it's not just breast. Male prostate translates to a high incidence of female breast. Melanoma, stomach, colon. We want to know all those things, but they account for 25%. Less than 10% are isolated genes. This whole Angelina Jolie, BRCA thing, it's rare.
Right.
So most people know risk factors. They've breastfed their kids, they've done everything right, exercise, etc., and they get cancer.
Okay. So what should people then be doing?
Know your body.
Right.
Examine your body. Do not be shy to know your body. Guys, if you've got urinary symptoms, we see prostate cancer in younger men in this country. GIT symptomatologies, you've got change in bowel habits and you're 25. We see colon cancer in 25-year-olds.
Yeah.
Girls, examine your breast. If it doesn't feel right, I always say, who do you turn to? So you turn to your mom, turn to a friend, because you are frightened. And we all do the same thing. Dr. Google, me, you, everyone. We have a twitch, we have a this, we're nervous, we're scared. So we have this concept of, I don't really want to know, but I'm worried. And it nags you in the back of your head. And what we need to know, I always say, is there's power in knowledge.
Yeah.
What you do with it can be your choice. But understand what you've got, because then we can counsel and add and see what's best for you.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier the issue of lifestyle.
Yes.
I mean, obviously it's been linked to development of some of these conditions we're talking about. So when it comes to lifestyle, what should people be doing on a preventative side?
So I think I've got like certain issues, not proven issues, but I think exercise is critical. We know exercise decreases cancer risk by 42%. Exercise. I loved your mental health segment when I saw that young boy putting on his tackies and going, we know, value. Watch what you eat, but it's no one thing. So don't be hard on yourself. Moderation. Watch obesity, okay? I really don't like this repeated takeaway food generation that we're bringing up. We have such nice natural African spinaches, this, that. There's such nice data on it. We should have reams of just natural help-yourself gardens.
Yeah. Let me give the last minute or so to you. I mean, you've been diagnosed, you're going through treatment.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. You interact with a lot of other young people.
Yes.
What's the conversation like?
When I bring it up, they're shocked because obviously there's a stigma behind cancer. Yeah. And the minute I tell them, no, it's breast cancer and it's stage 2, they're like, oh, no, it's not that bad. But it is bad because then I have to introduce all these chemicals into my body to kill the cancer. So the conversation it's not as engaging as it should be. Yeah. In terms of them wanting to find out for themselves, how I went about my journey. It's about, is it critical? Are you dying? If you're not dying, you're fine. You'll be okay. Yeah.
You don't look like you're dying to me.
I'm not
She's
dying.
beautiful. She's got chemo today, but there are big issues with youngsters. Fertility, ability to have kids down the line. Right. The concept of preserving a breast and a breast mound if you're sitting with a cancer. These are all important issues. Yeah. It's all right when you're not go-go like me. It's not great, but it's okay. But when you're young and beautiful and 28, these are critical issues.
Absolutely. I think that's where we're going to have to leave
you.
it. It's been such an insightful discussion. Professor Carol and Ben, and of course Mandisa and Cindy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, time for another quick break. When we come back, we'll focus on youth and cardiovascular health. Please stay with us.
I do 4 with mass, brown sugar.
I like my Wheat Pix on the go.
That's Wheat Pix my way.
That's Wheat Pix my way. That's Weet-Bix my way.
We all have a different way of enjoying South Africa's favourite breakfast. Try a new Weet-Bix way by visiting weet-bixmyway.co.za and stand the chance to win weekly vouchers.
Baletsle Mtetwa joins us now live. MNS attorneys were mandated to conduct these reports and investigations. What sort of processes did they follow?
We heard Tiamo explaining that they worked with actuarial scientists in order to investigate these transactions.
Slap suits, tell us more about this.
The concept of slap suits, which is a litigation often used by big companies to silence critics.
We as civil society won't stand for this kind of intimidation and harassment. If you come to South Africa, you need to obey the obligations that you have in terms of the laws of this country, including environmental laws.
SABC News continues to gauge our democracy throughout 2019 by highlighting the successes, failures and challenges. Democracy Gauge is back on SA Today every Tuesday from 5:30 to 6 p.m. It's 25 years in review of all aspects of the South African democratic experience, and you remain in the heart of the story. SABC News, independent, impartial.
We're explorers. We always have been. Endlessly curious. Always looking for answers. For new frontiers. For new stories. Because that is who we are. From script to screen. From yelling action to taking you on a journey. Radio producers. Script writers. On-air presenters. News reporters, sports analysts. We spend late nights creating captivating storylines and earlier mornings keeping you informed, educated, and entertained. For us, it's not a job, it's a calling. We do this and more because you do your part. SABC TV licenses, made possible by you.
Adele Lottering's 16-year-old daughter Jessica was diagnosed with pulmonary atresia, a bad defect of the heart where the valve that controls blood flow from the heart to the lungs does not form at all. In babies with this defect, blood has trouble flowing to the lungs to pick up oxygen for the body.
She was diagnosed from birth. She was born with a bluish color. They actually thought she had another sickness, and then they sent her to a pediatrician, and he found out it was the heart. So they sent her over to Sunny Hill, where she was 2 days old when she had her first operation.
The diagnosis came as such a huge shock to Jessica's family.
She was only like 1.98 kilograms when they did the first operation.
The long stays in hospitals over the last years depressed Jessica.
I always felt scared and nervous about the operation, and
In 16 years, Jessica had 13 operations done, and these had a huge impact on her and her mom.
In Jessica's case, it was different because her body kept on rejecting the valve, so she had to go for operation after operation.
At 13 years old, Jessica started understanding the challenges brought by her heart condition.
it kind of made me feel different from the other kids, because I couldn't play with them and I couldn't do sports. I was kind of bullied in high school, in normal high schools, and then I just decided to go to homeschooling because it would be better emotional and physically.
Jessica is grateful for her family and friends' support and says that it gave her a positive outlook on life.
You shouldn't always feel bad about your disability, because you can still live your life to the fullest every day.
All right, that's the story of Jessica with a cardiovascular problem, and there's many others out there. The reality is that more and more youth are experiencing some of these conditions. Back with us is Dr. Fundi Lenyati, a family physician, and Cassandra Govender, a clinical psychologist. Perhaps let's start with you, Dr. Nyatsi. Obviously, pulmonary atresia is not a condition that's well known and perhaps not that common.
Yes.
However, we're seeing, perhaps let me ask you, what are the trends that we're seeing out here?
If one looked 30 years ago, congenital type of illnesses, problems that somebody, got at birth, defect in how the heart was formed, like in that case, were the common thing, or rheumatic heart diseases, were the common conditions. But what we're seeing now is that problems relating to lifestyle, food choices, lack of exercise, are actually becoming much more prevalent at a younger age. So we're starting to see kids, the issue of childhood obesity is quite a challenge now in our country. I think, again, it's part of this busy life. Parents are working, buy fast foods, I'm not going to mention the brands, but generally, so we've got challenges there. There's a lot of games that kids play at home. They don't have time to go outside and play, and burn the energy. So we're seeing now kids with obesity challenges, kids with problems relating to your diabetes, type 2 diabetes. We're seeing kids who have got problems with hypertension. At a young age, we're seeing a lot of hormone challenges, kids with hormone challenges, endocrine problems. So that's what we are seeing nowadays, and it's a problem. Because these are the things that we used to see, amongst older people.
It's an interesting one. Hypertension, for instance, you'd think that this is something that only affects, older people. And you are saying, essentially, we are starting to see
we're starting
lots
to
of
see,
young people with hypertension.
Kids from around age 10, who are actually, presenting with issues relating to hypertension. And when you drill down, it's very much lifestyle issue, related. And also us as parents, we're not setting good examples to our kids. So the way your attitude to food, your attitude to physical activity as a parent, in a way, does affect what is in the fridge. Which is based on your food choices as a parent, is what the child is going to learn. So actually, a lot of this, as parents, we have a lot to answer for.
Because you can chip in here in terms of perhaps some of the risk factors, as it were, that you're seeing from your experience.
Well, I suppose I can talk to you a little bit about the link, I guess, between the two and how that can directly influence one side or the other. So mental health challenges directly linked to physical health challenges sometimes, and vice versa. So if you have someone who's physically ill, there's a high risk they're going to present with mental health challenges, whereas if they are physically ill, vice versa, and mentally ill, vice versa. So I think what happens is that in terms of if you are struggling with a chronic physical illness, so something that's lifelong, as we saw in the video, has a severe impact on your mood, your ability to function in the world. So it can cause people to have a mood disorder, feel very depressed about being sick all the time, not being able to live life normally. But it can also create a lot of anxiety around, as she mentioned, going for surgeries, but taking my medication, making sure I don't get sick, making sure I'm functioning. And on the other side of the spectrum, if you've got someone who's very mentally ill, a lot of us express our challenges physically. We can start with basics with saying a headache when I'm stressed, or tummy issues, and that can then, on chronic mental illness, become even worse over time. So I think there's
we're
quite
going to come back to, because the support for treatment, especially where these youngsters have to be on chronic medication, I think that's an important aspect. But let's come back to you, Dr. Nyatsi. So people watching this program will say, okay, so what are those common things that we've heard, hypertension and so on? So we often talk about know your numbers. What should young people out there be doing to check their health?
Well, I think, we're talking of lifestyle related health challenges. Clearly, the issue of one's blood sugar, it's very important to know. The issue about the blood pressure of the child, it's important to know.
Right.
The body mass index, that is how much weight is one carrying for their height, you know. And so those are the numbers that one needs to be aware of.
Yeah.
And most clinics, even within pharmacies nowadays, you've got sisters that are there that could quickly, within 5 minutes, you know, give you information around those kind of conditions. More like screening, you know, it's just screening. And I mean, when it comes to hypertension, the things have been tightened up now, you know, the numbers.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, you know, adults as well now, they need to be, you know, to go there, go and be checked by their treating doctors. They could be checked by the clinics, because with the tightening of the criteria of who is hypertensive, a lot of people who were borderline or marginal, all of a sudden with that, now they could be diagnosed as hypertensive. So this is not only for adults, but I'm even talking about, you know, from young age.
Yeah. And this is over and above those that may be viewed as high risk, as in, you know, children of parents that have hypertension.
Exactly.
They also need to start.
Yes,
I mean,
yes. So there is that familial link.
Yeah.
You know, so if the kid comes from a family where either the mother or the father or both have got, you know, these lifestyle illnesses, the likelihood of them also presenting with those is much higher, especially if, you know, from a lifestyle side of things, there's poor physical activity, poor food choices, and sometimes even if there's a lot of stress, you know, there's conflict in the family, and the kid maybe, you know, is one of those who gets depressed, and then they turn to food. You know, as a way of comforting, because not all young people are expressive about how they feel.
Yeah.
So sometimes they may not present in the usual way that we expect.
All right. Let's get back, Cassandra, to that subject. You know, once a young person is diagnosed with a chronic condition and has to be on chronic medication or lifelong medication, they often don't take that well. Let's talk about the support, psychological support that is necessary for this young person.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start with the topic of how parents needed to be supported, I think.
Right.
Because if parents are supported, kids are supported. So I think a lot of parents, I think, are overburdened sometimes, and they don't always have the time or the capacity to check tablets have been taken, to make sure that we're talking to our children about how they're feeling, that we're having open dialogues about this chronic condition, how we relate to it. So I think parents sometimes, the first thing, need to upscale their support structure so that they can be available to ensure that they're carrying out the relevant kinds of support, you know, making sure that the meals are correct, as you've mentioned, making sure kids are doing what they need to, but also that they can talk about what's going on and those kinds of things.
Just to add on that, I think in the last few months, I've come across a lot of parents who are actually battling with a situation where their kids, you know, especially youth, are going through, you know, mood disorders, your depression, your bipolar, substance abuse problems. And, you know, the word they use is, you know, this area of mental health, it's like a maze. We don't know how to navigate it. You know, we as adults, we actually need to be supported, because it's a minefield. You don't know, once you are in, you don't know which side to turn. There's confusing information, and us as healthcare professionals, to some extent, we are also responsible, because in communicating and trying to, you know, to support them, we don't talk in accessible language. You know, so you find that people will come and see me, but I converse with them, share information as if I'm talking to another doctor. And people are looking for accessible information, practical information. What do I need to do? You know, my child has got a depression problem. How do I deal with this thing? You know, so I think parents need to be upskilled. Also, you know, healthcare professionals need to find ways to use accessible language and actually spend time with their patients.
All right. Well, Cassandra Govender, clinical psychologist based out there in Senton, Thank you so much for your input.
Cheers.
Okay, time for another quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up our discussion on youth and health by focusing on diabetes. Please stay with us.
On Network, we have gadgets, robots, and more.
I just hacked the drone and now I have full control of it. I can fly it, I can get all kinds of data back.
A lot of people nowadays plan their travels based on what they see on hashtag #InstaTravel.
Basically, with the use of your smartphone, you are able to navigate your way in and across the length and breadth of our majestic country.
There's technology and social media news on Network at 8:30 p.m. and every Sunday at 5:30 p.m.
The SABC News mobile app is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need. Stay connected with the latest in breaking news. Watch the SABC News channel along with clips and live streams of all the big news events. And listen to all the SABC News radio stations live, including podcasts and much more. Simply download the SABC News app to your Android or iOS device from either the Play Store or the App Store. SABC News, independent, impartial.
Mama, tell me a story.
My child, I have a great story to tell you. Although we come from humble beginnings, we've done legendary things.
South Africa have won the 1996 African Cup of Nations.
Our lands are full of wonders. Even though sometimes things don't go our way, we find inner strength to persevere and push forward. We dress up for the occasion. Oh, how we love to dance and sing. We've seen our fair share of victories and disappointments. But we thrive when we are together. And that, my dear child, is the beautiful story of Africa.
SABC is the official broadcaster of AFCON 2019, Africa's beautiful story. SABC is the official broadcaster of AFCON 2019, Africa's beautiful story.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, we're talking youth and health, and we're with Dr. Fundile Nyati, a family physician and CEO of Proactive Health Solutions. I'm now joined by another special guest, Tiro. Welcome, who is a young person living with diabetes. Welcome to Health Talk. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Perhaps let's stay with you. It's not the first time we're having you.
Yes.
But I mean, you had such a compelling story to tell the last time. Please just remind us about yourself.
All right. Growing up in the Vaal, at the age of 17, I was very active.
Yeah.
Playing all the sports at school. And then just overnight, I started getting sick, feeling tired, drinking a lot of water, going to the bathroom a lot. And in my family, we didn't understand what diabetes really was. And then I started losing weight quickly, just like that. And then my mother decided to take me to the doctor just to get it checked out. And when we got there, she confirmed that it was diabetes. But then, like I said previously, I was sent home without any medication because we also didn't understand what is going on.
Yeah. So there was nobody in your family with diabetes?
I believe my grandparents were.
Yeah.
But at that time, my parents also didn't really have knowledge of what diabetes was.
Right.
So there was not a lot of Google at that time.
Yeah.
So we didn't have a place to do research, So most of the stuff were learned from different people. Like, okay, this is what you do, this is what you don't do. But some of it was wrong, some of it was right.
Right.
So it was a bit of a steep to climb. In the beginning.
At the age of 17, being told that you have diabetes must have been hard. How did you react to that?
To be honest, it wasn't hard in the beginning, because I was, like I said, I was getting a lot of attention from people, and I thought, hey, being a young kid, this is nice, enjoying the attention, but not realizing the impact that it will have on me as through time as I grow up as well. That certain changes that I have to go through in life
Yeah.
You know, changing the way I eat, the way I do certain things. I'm not like any other kid on the street anymore. I have to do things completely different now. You know, but now it's normal. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And you started medication at that time?
At that age, yes, of 17.
And what sort of medication?
Injection.
I'm on atropine injection because I'm a type 1. So, and yeah, it's just atropine and just eating right, you know.
All right. So, Dr. Nyati, I mean, he's a type 1 diabetic.
Yes.
We don't normally like calling people diabetics.
Yes,
but I mean,
yes.
he's living with
Personals living with diabetes. Yes.
Diabetes.
Yes.
Just tell us the trends, I mean, that we're seeing nowadays in terms of diabetes in young people.
Well, I mean, in the past, you know, when we qualified, in the late 80s, most kids who had diabetes, it was type 1 diabetes, that is the type of diabetes whereby the body needs insulin because the cells inside your pancreas, you know, were not producing enough insulin. So that used to be called juvenile diabetes and stuff like that. All right. And then, you know, obviously type 2 later, you know, which is relating to, you know, lifestyle issues, getting overweight and all of that. So that's how we saw things. However,
interestingly, it was called adult onset diabetes.
Yes,
correct?
we used to.
Because it was associated with
adulthood. Yes. Right. But what we're seeing now is actually an emergence of autoimmune diseases. You know, diseases whereby your body is producing, you know, or your soldiers in your body are actually attacking your normal body cells, and in doing so, they are causing lots of problems. Your lupus problems, you know, your diabetes, type 1 diabetes, whereby your body is attacking your pancreas. So age 17, age 18, your pancreas cannot produce insulin anymore. Your body is attacking your thyroid, you know, and then your thyroid gland cannot do the work anymore. So that's what we are seeing. And there are a lot of theories as to why we are seeing this. Part of it is actually the highly processed foods that we are, you know, eating nowadays. You know, we've moved a lot from fresh foodstuffs, you know, from the garden, you know. So some of the things that are put in the processed foods are actually, they trigger, you know, the autoimmune, you know, diseases. And so that's what we are seeing. So younger and younger people are presenting with a variety. They will start with diabetes like him, but then maybe later, you know, present with other autoimmune, you know, problems, skin conditions like vitiligo, psoriasis, you know, alopecia and all of that. So it's diabetes with something else, you know, amongst young people. On somebody who, for the, you know, majority of their first 20 years, they were actually okay. Then come age 17, then they are presenting with challenges like that.
All right. We spoke earlier about, you know, the fact that once you are on chronic medication, you need support because, you know, you sticking to that, you know, treatment regimen that's been prescribed for you is important in making sure that your condition is under check. Just give us, or at least others that may be watching, you know, who may have been diagnosed with a chronic ailment, your tips on ensuring that you follow the correct sort of treatment.
All right. Firstly, people around you, they need to know what's going on. Educate them on your diabetes. In certain situations when you become hypoglycemic, or for example, tell them what they need to do. Like my beautiful wife, when we first met, I actually taught her what to do. And now she knows every step of the way what needs to be done. People around you do play a very vital role with that support. They understand, and when you educate them more, they know what to do. Because a lot of people I've seen that get shocked when someone's not feeling well when they're diabetic. Then they get confused, they try and run away from you or whatsoever. They believe their own myths as well. So it's upon you as a diabetic to educate people about your condition.
Right.
You know, so that they can understand. And
but I suppose also stay well motivated, correct?
Stay well motivated, correct. You know, like my wife understands that gym is a part of my life. It's a lifestyle for me, so you have to keep healthy. You know, those things, if you let people understand around you what diabetes is, I think education is the key word when it comes to diabetes. Just educate people more, because a lot of people still don't understand what diabetes is. They still call it sugar. They think you have a high intake of sugar or whatsoever. So education is the key.
Right. Perhaps you want to come in there in terms of, you know, how to support.
I think being a family physician, obviously I need to mention this, that, you know, there has to be a close, more of a partnership between a treating doctor and their patient. You know, it's not just a matter of, okay, you come, I renew your script and that's it.
Off you go.
You know, we need to walk the journey together. Also recognizing as a doctor that because of Dr. Google and other, you know, online platforms, patients are now much more informed. And from time to time, they will come and ask for advice, sometimes on things that I, as a doctor, have not even, you know, heard about. Because, for example, in situations like him now, there's a whole issue of the stem cell technology, you know, to replace some of the cells, you know, that, you know, are no longer functioning. So if, as a doctor, he comes to me and as my patient, I need to take time to read about these new technologies and advise him so that he can look forward, you know, give him hope. But also need to encourage him on things like alcohol, you know, intake of alcohol, intake of, you know, smoking, and other practices that can actually worsen, you know, the management of his condition.
Which are issues that are obviously quite rife out there.
Exactly, you know, because it's still young people, they're exploring this, exploring that. And so with peer pressure, you know, and the need to experiment, those, you know, things can actually make the management of the condition to be quite difficult.
This is where we're going to have to leave it. It's been such a very useful discussion, and thank you so much, Diro, for sharing your story with us. And Dr. Fundile, of course, thank you as always. Okay. And for you guys at home, thank you so much for watching. We're back again on your screens next week, same time. I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and until next time, please do take care.